What's up, y'all? ABN here, and we're gonna discuss why Chris Paul should go to the Spurs and leave the Clippers. Now, we always talk about super teams and all that kind of stuff. And right now, it's looking like it's gonna be Cavs and Warriors for the next 3 to 6 years. So I'm saying the only way that he can win, Chris Paul is getting old. I'm pretty sure he's in his low 30s. Don't have the exact number, but this dude is getting old. And he really needs to find a team that can win. The Clippers, even if they re-sign their whole roster, they still cannot get out of the second round. So what does that mean for his future? Well, that means he's going to have to look elsewhere for some success. And right now, probably the best spot for him would probably be the San Antonio Spurs. Coach Pop, Kawhi Leonard, and you could limit Tony Parker. He'd probably be way more successful if he didn't have as much weight on him every single game. But Chris Paul and Kawhi Leonard, and then they would most likely keep LaMarcus Aldridge as well. So that's a big three in itself right there. Right there, that is a killer team right there. And now we could talk about loyalty with the Clippers. That's always the big thing with old-time players like Chris Paul. He is very loyal. Same with Carmelo Anthony. They are very loyal to their teams. And if he decides to sign with the Clippers again, that would basically be the most loyal thing I've ever seen a star do. So, yeah, I've written a few things down to discuss in this video. So, number one, we're going to discuss future. So, the future of Chris Paul, man, he's getting old, like I said before. And the Clippers, their future is not looking that great. They got Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, but they've already proven the amount of success they can have in the playoffs. I think even if Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were both healthy at the same time, I really don't even see them getting past the second round anyway. The Jazz, I feel they would have taken them out in 7 anyway. Blake Griffin, though, he is injury prone. And if it's not him, and then it's Chris Paul, it seems. And then you can't just rely on both players being healthy at the same time to finally see what they can do, because the Warriors have already reached an elite level. So even if they do get past the second round and meet up in the conference finals, there's really no chance for them. The Spurs, we saw the Spurs, they would have taken game 1. Had Kawhi Leonard been healthy, they would have taken game 1, and it would have been crazy. The whole world would have gone crazy, and we would have really seen some challenges right there for the Warriors. That is the only team in the Western Conference, I feel, that can challenge the Golden State Warriors. And they didn't even have Tony Parker as well. And just replace Tony Parker with Chris Paul. Chris Paul is basically a much better version of Tony Parker. He doesn't get to the basket as well, but he's got a solid jump shot. So that would basically be an upgrade at the point guard position. But the thing is, their free agency, the Spurs would have to get rid of a lot of pieces, like possibly Jonathan Simmons, Patty Mills, Pau Gasol, maybe even David Lee. They've got a lot of pieces they have to move. So that team would almost be broken up just to get Chris Paul to sign. Unless Chris Paul decides to sign for less than the max, which is another segment we're going to get into right here. That leads us to number 2, which would be money. The amount of money that Chris Paul can get if he signs with the Clippers is like $50 million less. He can get like $200 million if he signs with the Clippers. And if he decides to sign with the Spurs for the max, then that would be like 150 million, 170 million. It'd be around 50 million less, and one less year. So if Chris Paul really cares about winning, he would have to look past those differences. Because obviously we know the Spurs would do better than the Clippers. I think he'd know that. So yeah, the money is a huge problem, which could lead to a huge roster breakup. But I don't think it would be that crucial if you have a solid 4 in place already, which would be Tony Parker. Oh, solid 5 actually. Tony Parker, Chris Paul, LaMarcus Aldridge, Kawhi Leonard, and Manu Ginobili. And actually, Ginobili, he may even retire. Now that I think about it, that would be some money saved. And that would open up some that would open up some more room for Chris Paul to sign for a little bit more money. Not really that much of a difference, but still, that'd be like a $2 million difference. But yeah, that's a big issue with Chris Paul joining the Spurs is money. That's a huge problem. So the next part of this video, we're gonna dive into another topic, and I wrote it down. I gotta find it. All right, here we go. We're gonna talk about success. The amount of success that Chris Paul could have with the Spurs, the potential is through the roof. He'll be meeting up with the Warriors in the conference finals, most likely. They already took down the Rockets in 6 with an injured Kawhi Leonard. Oh, by the way, Kawhi Leonard was injured for the last game. So they had a nice long break. Tony Parker was out. They still closed out the series. But anyway, the Spurs, their firepower is crazy. And their offense is already great. Their defense is already great. Adding Chris Paul to the offense, that's just more buckets. It has to be. I don't see how Chris Paul cannot flow into the Spurs offense. He is a ball-dominant player, but he is a playmaker. He is an excellent one at that. And I think the Spurs, all the players they bring onto the system, they all just flow right in. With the maybe the only player that I've seen that hasn't thrived in that system would maybe be LaMarcus Aldridge. But again, LaMarcus Aldridge, I think he could flow perfect with Chris Paul. If you think back to the Damian Lillard and LaMarcus Aldridge days, those days were sweet. They were some sweet days. The Blazers battling with the Rockets in the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, anyway, back to the point. The success they could have is through the roof. They would have had at least one game on the Golden State Warriors this year without a point guard, because Patty Mills was not playing that great in that series, and Tony Parker was injured, of course, and then they had to look to the rookie for the point guard position, and he didn't do awful. I mean, he didn't do great, but he did decent. It was good enough. But beside that, so they'd have a good point guard in place. They'd have a shooting guard in Danny Green, possibly. And then Kawhi Leonard at the 3. That's just Kawhi Leonard. You've got the top 5 point guard and a top 5 small forward, top 3 small forward. That's perfect. That's almost all you need right there, with a nice rebounding center. So that right there, that success level could be high. Now, we're gonna have one less topic than I had planned, but we've got topic number 4. The new state of the NBA. So, the new state of the NBA basically calls for this kind of team. You need a star. You need at least 2 stars to be successful. Basically, that's just how it is now. You got the big three over in Cleveland, you got the big four over in Golden State, and that's pretty much the face of the new NBA now. You got Boston, the number one seed. They couldn't get it done. They had Isaiah Thomas, their franchise player, for that season at least. They had him. Couldn't get past Cleveland. And then you had the Spurs, of course. They had one game on Golden State. Would have, but they got swept. They lose one star and they had nothing else for them. And then the Clippers, of course, they lost in 7 to the Jazz. Maybe it would have been different with Blake Griffin, but that team, they still need some more help. But all these has to be put in play for Chris Paul's new decision. So basically, that's probably his best decision right there, to go to the Spurs. More firepower, just too much for a lot of teams to handle. Back with the Clippers, wasn't looking so great. It's almost like if he signs there, that's pretty much the end of his career. So he really only has one more big decision to make. And I think that decision has to be the San Antonio Spurs for his legacy. If he wants a chip, he'll go to San Antonio. If he wants loyalty, he'll stay with Los Angeles. But that's it for this podcast, Decisions. Leave a like if you like it. And basically that's all I got. Maybe comment some more discussions you like me to discuss with y'all. But that's pretty much going to do it. This is ABN, All Ball Network. Thanks for watching.